Hello everyone, and welcome back to Trackling 101. Today, I want to discuss a few real-life principles as we build some track at the free TPO. Let's get started. So just before we begin, one last thing I wanted to share was this. This is Roads Online Extended, and it allows me to have a map of the game and do some cool stuff, and I'm going to be using it just as an overlay in-game. So without further ado, let's begin. Now that we're back in game, one thing I actually want to start talking about is straight pieces. How do I actually build good, straight, beautiful pieces of track? Well, using any of the rails, I don't recommend using rail 4. I'm going to use rail 1 personally. What I would recommend you do is use circle mode. Because remember, if I use circle mode, or if I don't use circle mode, stuff like this can happen. And it's really hard to get consistent straight pieces without circle mode. So I'm going to go back to my construction menu and get rail 1 here. And remember that circle mode allows us to build straight, allows us to build consistent and exact measurements that we want. So using the info in the top right here, I have my alignment set to 90, which is the perfect alignment for the free depot. It's on grid 10. It doesn't necessarily matter which grid you want, depending on how big you want the movements. As you can see here, I like 1 to give me really nice, precise movements. We're not going to worry about radius. We're not going to worry about incline. Really only going to look for circle mode on and the length. Think about here will do. And as you can see, just nice and perfectly straight. It doesn't change. I'm going to put the rail right about here. Ta-da! Perfectly straight. Now, doing the exact same thing. My settings are saved. I'm going to go over here and do it on this side. Say about here. And ta-da. Now we should have 2 perfectly symmetrical and parallel lines on both sides of the freight depot. Awesome. And that's really it in terms of just straight pieces. As long as you use circle mode, you should be able to make completely straight pieces. The kind of caveat to this is if I place crossovers or something on the end of a piece, I can turn off circle mode and connect the two. Granted that they are perfectly straight from each other. This is one of the only ways you can actually create a good straight freehand spline is when you connect it between 2 points. So when it comes to creating a curve, it can be a little harder than you might think. Let's go back into Rows Line Extended and see what we can do. So here we are back in Rows Line Extended, and you can see we have our perfectly straight pieces on our side of the freight depot. Now, the thing I want to actually do is create a nice curve that heads out to the sawmill and maybe even the logging camp. The question is, how do I actually do that? Well, before I actually show you the building of it, I want to talk about some engineering principles that maybe we can apply to help do that. And one such thing is spiral curves. Let's go see what it is. Okay, so here I have some diagrams for us to look at. This is what we call a partial cloverleaf. This is used in roadway design here in the United States and all across the world. Now, look very carefully. We call it a partial cloverleaf because it kind of has these little circles like a 4-leaf clover. But if you notice, most of these clovers, these leaves, are not circular. These ones here on the bottom are more like a horseshoe, a U shape. Same thing with these ones above, they're more of a J shape than a circle. Why is that? Well, this is the concept of a spiral curve. As you can see here, we start very kind of straight, long, and as the curve starts, it gets sharper and sharper and sharper until it reaches the center to nothing. And the reason we do this is we want the smoothest transition between a straight piece and a curve, because it provides faster train running, faster driving, whatever the case, a smoother ride. If we keep going and we look at some other examples, this shows it really nice here. These three gray triangles are a circle. If you look very closely, they form a nice part of a circle. If I were to continue this all the way around, it should make a perfect equal circle. But here in the brown, we see the spiral curve. It starts nice and long, wide curve, and as it gets to the center, it gets sharp, 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 and flattens back out. Here at the center, it should be the sharpest point. If we keep going and look at some other diagrams, we can see that a little bit better. Here in the top right, we have a really wide curve going straight into a sharper curve. Same thing is just the page before. We have a flat piece going into a wide curve, but it's narrower here in the center. Bottom left, we have a reverse curve, kind of like an S shape, using the same concept. And over here, a spiral curve. Very neat. And lastly, here's another example, but used in real life on a road. We have this nice reverse curve that forms an S shape, but it uses the idea of spiral curves to create the smoothest transition between them. We start with two flat pieces that go into a wide and then a sharp curve that flatten out a little bit, and they stay wide and flatten back out here. And this should be, in theory, create the smoothest road, or in our case, the smoothest track for us to drive anything on, any vehicle. So, let's go back into Roads Online and see if we can actually apply this. Okay, now that we're back into Roads Online, let's see if we can actually kind of apply this. Remember, we're trying to make a nice curve that goes straight and eventually turns that way to the sawmill way out in the distance over there. So before we actually even make the curve, what I want to do is I just want to extend this straight piece rather far. No particular distance, I just want to make it go far. So we have plenty of space to kind of figure out this angle. Now, I don't know how you can see it over there, but it looks like if I go anywhere close, I'm going to run into this mountain over here. So I think maybe I need to start maybe a little farther back. Now, what kind of angle am I using? Well, remember that this is 90 degrees, and we're trying to make a nice hard cut left. So I think if I change my alignment, I think 45 degrees should do nicely. Kind of looking at it, I want to try to stay as close to the mountain as I can. I think somewhere around here would be good. Just making a little anchor piece, and now the fun part. Just gonna extend this out. Okay, this should probably be the last piece. See if I can get it to render. Huh. Why isn't it connecting? If you remember from my previous episode, remember what I said, that if the groundwork does not go all the way down, it won't connect. And this is one such case here. Even though the beginning piece and the ending piece are touching, most of the rail is not. So we need to not build this and use a different fill. I am going to use fill 3. And just do the same thing. I'm just going to draw it straight out. Maybe to about here. Now look. It placed. We have groundwork filling all the gaps below it. Beautiful. I like that. So now I'm back in Roads Online Extended. And what I'm actually going to try to do now is figure out where the curve needs to start. In theory, I want to have the smoothest curve possible. I don't think I'm going to put a curve here closest. I think I want a nice wide curve. And by the looks of it, what I see is I see a point here where my cursor is, and I also see a point maybe right here. And so now I'm actually gonna get a piece of crossover and see if I can lay that using my overlay. I think somewhere around here should be good. Pulling it up one more time just to kind of see. This is a little far, so I think around here we need to start the curve. Yeah. And so now we have our 2 points. And I think now we can actually just go ahead and delete this. take our rail one. We're just going to drag it out to our marker we just made. I think nice, well, close to 26 would be good. Then same thing here. We're just going to delete this piece and this piece. Go over here and connect it, and we're going to just bring it to our marker. I think let's go with 37. Now, to kind of proof that we did this right, I am going to make a curve in circle mode. It doesn't matter which end you start in, but we just want to see if our spacing is correct. So it's a little wide. I think that works, but you see how far it is away? Something around maybe 199 would be good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to straighten this piece out, set it back to alignment or radius 0, and just drag it out till about the same spot right here. So now I'm going to delete the curve, and I believe now we should be able to just freehand it. Look at that. Nice and smooth. Let's go double check it on extended. Yep, I think we did a pretty good job. We can see it's a little sharper here, but that is fine. It's just still, it's nice and smooth. That is the main goal. We want a nice smooth curve, and I think we accomplished that. So now, let's go ahead and clean up some stuff. So now we did part 1. We kind of set our straight pieces, our main line going out to the sawmill, and we connected one of the tracks to a curve. However, we did not connect the second one. So let's go and do that now. I'm going to take my demolish tool here and be a safe distance away. Break that straight piece right off the curve. Now what I'm going to do is I am just going to take a switch, doesn't matter which one, and by pressing E, I'm actually going to change where I am linking stuff. By pressing either Q or E, I want to link my track to the far straight piece away from the stand, like so. And now I have a left facing switch that turns to the left, and we're going to use that to connect to the other track. But first, let's connect these two. Okay, so I think we might be able just to simply get away with putting a curve from the switch over here. Ah, but we can't. We totally forgot about the spawn tracks over here. So, at a very basic level, what we're going to try to do is just connect all 3 of those to this track. Nothing more, nothing less. Just 3 tracks into one. So, a kind of good way to do that is I'm, again, just going to build some short segments here. I think if I actually get rid of this middle one, same thing, I'm going to take a left facing switch and place it this way. Now we have some kind of switch facing towards the spawn tracks. Before we even try placing anything else, we're going to make a straight piece out. Huh. So if you see here, we're a little short from connecting to this track. So in terms of fixing it, there is no surefire way, no system to actually fix it, but we can do some tricks to kind of get small spacing. Let's use one crossover. See what happens. Same thing, we're just going to place a left facing switch and see if we come out to that track. Not quite. Maybe we just need to put one more crossover. Okay. I like that, but I think it's a little too tight. We're really close. So what can I do to fix it? Well, if you didn't know, besides the angle between the crossovers, the 45-degree crossover is slightly bigger than the 90-degree. So I just need a little bit of a push back, and I'm going to use the 45-degree crossover to do that. Same thing, left facing switch. Now we're just going to drag a straight piece out. And look at that. Very nice. We're going to go to a nice round number. Now I should just be able to freely connect these two pieces. Ta-da! Now we have a nice, long, beautiful piece connecting to our tracks. Now, we're not going to worry about the other two for right now. We're just going to kind of clean up first. Okay, so now we have our switch, and we need to connect it to our other switch over there. But something looks kind of off. At this point, that curve has already started turning, while this one's still going straight. So in fact, we're going to have a very kind of wide curve. It's going to extend out really far. So what can I do to fix this? Well, instead of placing a left-facing switch like this, what if I placed a right-facing switch, and we're going to connect the turnout here? As you can see, it connected to our other switch, or our other point, but now we're curving a little bit better. However, please delete this piece, or whatever piece you put here. If you break a switch that's connected to another piece of track, you need to replace it. Otherwise, the joint is not there, and it can cause your trains to derail, which we do not want. So now, we're just going to take any piece of track. We don't need to worry about the curve. We don't need to worry about the radius. We can just drag it into here. And so now, we have relatively two close curves that are nice and smooth, and they connect to where we want to connect. And we also have a track that goes to the spawn tracks. Overall, I think it's very nice. Let's take a look at it in extended. Yep, I think I'm happy with this. We did what I wanted to accomplish. We have two straight pieces, and we have two nice curves that extend out to our main line that cuts left. And kind of just using basic principles, I was able to do that. Kind of mark out where I want the curve to start and where I want it to end, break whatever pieces in between, and just connect it, see if it works. Now, if you have some trouble, let's say creating a tighter curve, which we'll eventually get to, there's some other things you can do, but really the main thing is trial and error. Take your time with it. It's not going to be perfect maybe the first time through, and that's okay. We're going to try things until we succeed. If we fail 1,000 times, so be it, but I know eventually we'll get there. I'm going to leave it here, and I hope we can pick it up and kind of actually start building out to the sawmill and get some industries, and maybe we can actually use our engine to drive there. Alright, y'all. My name is Kiss. Leave a comment down below, and I'll see you next time.